So a woman was sitting in front of me in a Sunday school room in a church that was not my own. She had tears in her eyes, tears on her face, and she said, "I guess it's okay. You are a pastor." Like Chris said, I travel to do storytelling. I do it to raise money to support Gilead, and I do it because I love it. I go to conferences or I visit other churches and I lead workshops, or sometimes I even give keynotes, which I still find very funny. Like when my mom asks, as she does every time I travel, what I'm teaching this time, I say it's literally always storytelling. She sometimes will follow up her question by asking, now, what's the attraction for folks to come to this conference? And I'm like, I think in this case, it might be me. So I find it funny. I lead intensives and workshops, and I have the goal of teaching with putting together a public storytelling event at the end of a 3-day time together. When I'm traveling, I get to wax poetic about our storytelling church, and I get to sing a song about storytelling, why it improves, as my co-pastor Vince says, literally everything. How it builds community and invites vulnerability and intimacy and builds capacity for that stuff, and how it reminds us that we're not alone, and how in fact true stories save lives. But I always forget to tell people. I always forget to tell them, often until there's someone in the room with tears in their eyes, at which point it feels a little pointed. So sitting in this Sunday school room in a church building that's not mine, and this woman is teary in front of me. We had done our Thursday night workshop teaching about stories and how to craft their own stories. And now I was on to this long Friday of one-on-ones. I sit down with one person after another, and I talk to them about their stories and their ideas. And I ask, if maybe they'd be game to tell a story on Saturday night. When this woman sat down, I said the line I always start with, "So what do you think about all this?" Trying to leave lots of space and not make any assumptions. And she wanted to start by telling me why she wasn't a good candidate for a public storytelling event, or why she wouldn't have been a good candidate for a storytelling event. I want to tell you some of my backstory, she said. This isn't my story. I said. The backstory started in the way back. She'd first read the Boxcar Children when she was 9 years old. "Oh, I loved that book," I said. "The first one especially." Yeah, she said. And she had read it at such a particular time when she had just entered the foster care system. And she had spent years taking care of her younger siblings. She was 9 years old and in a new household and newly not responsible for her little siblings. And she read the Boxcar Children, this kind of dated story about a group of kids off on their own, making home in the woods and an abandoned boxcar. There was a particular memory that was etched into my mind, which is that there was a little shelf hung in the boxcar. It was a lot about kids making it sort of homey in a way that I found it hard to believe kids would invest any energy in. There was a little broken teacup that was beautiful that was set on a shelf in the boxcar. Anyway, she read it when she was 9, and she just tore through it. And she felt, unlike me, who felt it was unrealistic, she was like, yes, this is real. This is how kids who have to take care of each other take care of each other. She grew up, went to school, had a boyfriend in high school who she ended up marrying and having 4 kids with, all in this town where I was visiting. Her spouse was an extrovert, and he started doing community theater, and he loved it. And so at some point, she saw the community theater had put up their signups for the next audition, and she went ahead and signed her spouse up. She didn't ask him first, but she went ahead and did it. "This isn't my story," she said again. "This is just the backstory." I got it. So she signed her spouse and her oldest kid up for the next audition, and kind of not believing she was doing it, she put her own name down, because the next show that the community theater in town was going to do was the Boxcar Children. This is nuts, she thought, going into the audition. She wasn't sure if she was going to do it. She wasn't sure if she'd go through with the audition, but she did. And she got cast, and her spouse got cast, and her oldest kid got cast in the role of the sibling who takes care of all the other kids in the Boxcar Children. So they went through weeks of rehearsal, and she got to see her extroverted spouse do his thing, and she got to watch her kid take on this role of caretaker, a role that her own kid would never have to play otherwise. And then it was time for the show to happen, the run. And then it was the last night of the show. And then it was the last curtain call of the show. And she was there on stage taking a bow for her role in the Boxcar Children, on stage with her kid and her spouse. And she was sitting in front of me in this Sunday school room in a church crying and saying, sorry, I guess it's okay. You are a pastor. It's definitely okay, I said. It's definitely okay. And I told her the thing that I always forget to say, which is that while we're there for a workshop or a conference or a keynote or whatever, and people show up with the expectation that those words carry, suddenly I ask a question like, can you think of a time when you were afraid? We're there for a workshop or a conference or a keynote, and then abruptly we're like kind of in it, you know, knee deep in the past, in our guts. And I sometimes forget to tell people that they should be gentle with themselves and not answer any questions they don't want to, because it's just a workshop, but we're playing with fire. She blew her nose and said, I don't know, I wasn't going to tell this. I mean, I was just telling you, but does it sound like a story that I could tell tomorrow night? And I told her what I told everyone, which is that she should only tell what she wants to tell, what she wants to be public. She doesn't have to tell anything she's not ready to tell. And that if she does want to tell it, it will be received as a great gift, and that people will be honored by her generosity and her vulnerability. And that's what happened.